What's up, guys? This is Ryan Conley with Karna Bunker Gear, and today we're going to talk about PFAS. So we just got back from Fire Rescue International, hosted by the International Association of Firefighters out in Dallas, Texas. And thank you guys for coming out and speaking to us and checking out our booth and table at the event. It was awesome to meet some of you guys. And I was also fortunate enough to get to speak with and listen to a lecture from Dr. Orman from NC State and Dr. Caroline Smith from Appalachian State. So both of them went over limitations of PFAS in the fire service, along with some of the other chemicals that we should be worried about, which are some of the things that I've addressed in other avenues, such as PAHs, SVOCs, heavy metals, flame retardants. So we're not really going to get into those today, but just realize that those are thermally absorbable and that those are carcinogenic, and they are major contributors to cancer in the fire service. So what I want to touch on today is PFAS specifically. So this is a very hot topic, and we made a product that specifically has no additive PFAS chemical treatment on it, because I do think it's important, but I want to put everything into context and for us to kind of take a step back and look at what's happening and what wheels are spinning and what is going on in the fire service right now. So PFAS is a chemical, it's a synthetic chemical, man-made. It was made in the 1940s originally by the US government to repel oil and fluid, and they used it on tanks and applications. It was such an amazing product that it has made its way into mainstream, obviously, and we know it as Teflon, Scotchgard, and was used for a lot of commercial products, and it was used on our bunker gear. So this chemical is carcinogenic. It is highly dangerous if it is at a dose that is in the blood serum. If you have a large amount of that in your blood, it is it's not lethal, but it's dangerous and it could lead to cancer. So what they saw with a lot of rat studies and people that ingested PFAS involuntarily in the surrounding areas around DuPont and West Virginia, Pennsylvania, those areas, they were having a lot of cancer rates, thyroid cancer, liver cancer, and it was basically a known carcinogen that was hidden and swept under the rug. So I don't want to make light of the situation. I think the chemical is very dangerous, but we need to understand how it is used and applied in the fire service. So in the fire service, we used it on our bunker gear to help protect us and our gear from specific things like petroleum products. And it was used on the exterior shell, so the outer layer of our gear was coated with a layer of PFAS, and it was also used in the moisture barrier liner. We're going to talk about both of those and why each of those are independently important. So PFAS on the exterior shell is capable of repelling petroleum products like diesel, hydraulic fluid, gasoline, and it does an amazing job. It works far better than any other alternative that we currently have. And as far as I know, and as far as I've spoken to other textile experts, there is no other possible compatible object or chemical that we could use that is similar to that in its efficaciousness. So ultimately, we're kind of stuck with how good this thing is at repelling oil. Nothing else really does that to the high quality that PFAS do. So with that being said, if we're taking PFAS off of our exterior liner, which has been the case since 2022, then our gear is now subject to hazards such as petroleum products. Now, you don't know what hazards we're going to see that day. You don't know what you could encounter or come into contact with. You could have a fire at a petroleum factory for all you know, or you could have a diesel fire or a truck fire. These are things that we can't predict, and that's part of the job is, trying to be as prepared as possible for things and using the right tool for the right job. So in this context, PFAS appears to be the right tool for the right job in repelling oil and diesel products. Diesel itself seems to be the highest hazard for firefighters. If that gets on our gear, it saturates the fabric very, very, very quickly. Now, Dr. Orman went into depth on this in his PowerPoint in his lecture. The study is not published yet, but they're in the process of publication, and he was kind enough to give us a heads up on what was kind of occurring and what he was seeing in the study. So 10 milliliters of diesel was applied to the fabric of bunker gear, and then it was essentially lit on fire with 4 flames for a 10-second burn, I believe. Those burns did not cause the injury to the subsequent firefighter mannequin underneath, or what would be the firefighter skin, but the burn that continued after the flashover or point of flame that was the contact of the bunker gear, the damage was done from the gear burning and the heat coming from the gear itself from the saturation of the diesel oil that continued to burn. So the gear was effective in holding off the flash, but it was not a flashover, but think of it as a flame flash. So it was effective in holding off the direct flame contact, and it worked very well in that case, but the diesel itself caused third-degree burns underneath the firefighter, underneath the gear on the firefighter, due to the petroleum, the diesel, continuing to burn. Gasoline was also a hazard, but it seems to be a little bit more volatile, obviously, so it burns a little bit more rapidly. It didn't have the same effect as diesel, and same as hydraulic fluid. Hydraulic fluid, the viscosity is a little bit different, so it did not spread as rapidly throughout the gear. It seemed to be more of a concentrated point, so that it appears that it wouldn't be as dangerous. You would be able to almost spot, localize, put that out. So that being said, I think that this is something that all firefighters need to know and understand, and that is why Dr. Orman and NC State are going through such lengths and rigorous academic studies showing what PFAS does and what the limitations of our gear is without using that chemical compound. So I just want everybody to be aware of that and to logically have this in the back of their head, that if they were coming to an accident or a scene with diesel or petroleum or some kind of hydrocarbon, that your gear, if it gets saturated, if it gets exposed to some kind of fluid on the exterior shell, you need to remove yourself from the hot zone and get out, extricate yourself out of the area and decontaminate that gear as soon as possible, as rapidly as possible. And you might not be able to participate in the activities or the scene at that point, because your gear is now compromised and you are compromised. So with that being said, I think the exterior shell we've covered pretty clearly, and just be aware of that if you have a new set of gear, be aware that you are probably not as fully protected from hydrocarbons as you were prior to that. One more point on the exterior shell: if you have a set of gear that is new to you, that was made prior to 2022 and does have exterior PFAS treatment on it, the standard, so to say, was after about 3 washes, the excess PFAS that is treated on the gear, that should come off. The excess should flake off or come off after wash. So the remaining PFAS that is on the gear, that was treated on the gear, that is basically the effective part of the treatment, that still remains, but you're getting rid of a lot of the excessive PFAS that was found in such high amounts in Dr. Peasley's study from Notre Dame a few years ago. So that's just some more context on that. So if you have a new set of older gear, go ahead and give that a couple washes, and then you should be getting rid of at least some of the unnecessary hazards from the PFAS itself. And secondly, on the inner liner, let's touch on that a little bit and what PFAS does on the moisture barrier. So with the moisture barrier, the cellular components of PFAS, the way that it's made and organized, it has space. There's a little bit of a gap there, and that allows humidity and vapor to leave out of the coat, out of the pants, so that your moisture barrier is now able to off gas, or you have a decent amount of THL, or thermal heat loss, coming out of the gear, and that allows you to not overheat as rapidly. So PFAS allows that humidity to leave, but it does not allow solid liquids to come through or to penetrate into the moisture barrier liner, which saves to protect your skin directly. So PFAS is allowing heat to leave, allowing vapor to leave, allowing humidity that's built up inside of the bunker gear from you sweating to leave the bunker gear a lot more effectively than other chemical treatments, such as carbon waxes and silicone-based layers. So with that being said, you're going to come into, and I've spoken to guys that have non-PFAS moisture barrier liners, their gear is significantly hotter. And this is another topic that guys need to be aware of. If you want to go to non-PFAS moisture barrier liner, you're going to trade off that thermal heat loss component of PFAS for this extra hot gear that is still not going to repel oil effectively, but it will repel other fluids. So those are some of the limitations. I want to put that out there. People are not aware of this. This is something that we need to talk about. This is something that needs to be discussed, that needs to be brought to the attention of firefighters, because there's a lot of wheels moving and a lot of things going on logistically and politically that are moving faster than the general knowledge and application for firefighters on the front line. I am actively fighting fire. I'm still a firefighter. I've been working for 9 years. I would like to know this stuff. I do know this stuff. I search this information out, and I want to give this information to you guys so that you can be aware as well and make the right decision for you and your department. Aside from that, if you guys would like to train or use Karna bunker gear, demo it, purchase some suits. We offer training gear that is specifically for non-IDLH atmospheres. It has no PFAS in it, it has no flame retardants in it, and you can wear that for all of your non-IDLH training, exercise, drill yard stuff, pulling hose, throwing ladders, all the fundamentals, pub eds, all of these things that will still allow you to train like you play, get out there, get heat acclimated, wear the gear, and still feel like a firefighter, but really have none of the risk with all the reward of training. The last point on PFAS that I want to touch on, more of Dr. Orman's studies are still being conducted. He's currently assessing pig skin dermal absorption on PFAS. Now, I will say that dermal absorption studies are very hard to do. They're very complex, and a lot of details and variability matters. You can see some studies such as heavy metal studies that look at how, I want to say it was cadmium, it might not be cadmium, but it was a heavy metal, and the specific results depended on something as little as a skin tear or humidity or going through the hair follicle or the pore, or so there's a lot of things that go on here. But with an open wound or slightly torn or open skin, you could have an absorption rate of 7 or 10% in a certain heavy metal, and that's escaping me at the moment, but 7 or 10%, they could go all the way up to 70% just by changing some of the variables in the absorption pathway. So there are limitations to every study. There are limitations to what we can test on humans and what is ethical and what's not ethical. What Dr. Orman is seeing so far is good news. The good news is that he is seeing on pigskin so far limited dermal absorption of PFAS. That doesn't mean it's zero. That doesn't mean that it can't be higher depending on the circumstances of your specific skin, the specific area that is being absorbed through. Is it going through the neck? Is it going through the hands? Is it going through the feet? Like, all of these things are different. But limited studies that he's conducting so far, good news. The PFAS is not as highly dermally absorbable as some of these other compounds are. So I think that that's a good place to end this. I wanted to just spread all this information with you guys, and hopefully it can help our understanding and to help move the fire service forward.